Well, we're heading off to the semifinals, and Shane, we got the matchup that we all were anticipating would happen as Lena Winslow and Forreston will take the field at 2 p.m. on Saturday at the Le-Win Athletic Bowl for the right to play for the state championship in DeKalb.
Yeah, we pretty much saw this coming as soon as the brackets were released, and we saw that they were on opposite sides. Everybody just kind of had to will through some bad weeks to get here, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the whole bracket outline, the south side even, Tuscola winning big over Carrollton, Athens putting up 3 scores in the second half to put Red Hill away,
Right.
giving us the Tuscola Athens, Lena Winslow, Forreston semifinal matchups that we predicted would happen to give us our state championship game the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we saw the bracket, and what we've really been talking about all year was the 4 best teams in 1A as far as we're concerned, and it so happened they're all were placed in the right section of each bracket to get the best 4 teams in the semifinals. What more can you ask for, really?
You're right. So it's going to be great. I mean, Lena Winslow, let's look back at what we've had here. Lena Winslow won their game 67-28 over Aquin, while Forreston put away Princeville 42-0. We'll start with the Lena Winslow-Aquin game. Ravion had 248 yards in the first half. That's what he finished on for the day on 12 carries.
It was a personal record.
It was. Career high for Ravion there. Obviously pushes him much closer to that 2,000-yard mark for the season. But then you look on the other factor, Cooper Arndt for Aquin had 251 yards passing in the first half, while Zach Cummins had 197 yards receiving of that 251 yards.
Well,
but the halftime score was 60-14 with the running clock beginning in the start of the second half.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, if you get the ball, I mean, some stats can kind of be misleading at times. No better example than a kick returner. I mean, the guy can finish with 250 yards. Well, yeah, if you get the ball enough times and enough returns, it adds up. No different than Aquin having the ball as many times as they did after Lena just punched it in at will.
Right.
I mean, Aquin got the ball. They moved the ball at times. So, yeah, your yardage is going to look good, but like you said, the halftime score was, I mean, the game was over in the first quarter anyway, so.
It was. I mean, Lena Winslow obviously jumped out to a 21-0 lead just 4 minutes and 51 seconds into the game, and then just with over 3 minutes left in the first quarter, we're up 28-0 when Aquin finally answered on the first Cooper to Cummins connection that made the score 28-7 at the end of the first quarter. Then they each traded touchdowns to make it 34-14. But then Lena Winslow put up 4 more scores to make it 60-14 at the half.
Right, and something we were talking about a little before we started doing this today. The thing that really surprised me is that Aquin didn't even try to establish a run game, and that's something we really highlighted on in our last video as to what if Aquin was going to even keep it close, they needed to start a run game, and they didn't even attempt that. And I'm looking for my sheet here, but the first half, Aquin's got
minus 10 yards
minus
rushing.
10 yards rushing on, sacks. They didn't even try to run the ball. I'm not a coach or anything like that, but you're looking at film and basically every team that Lena has played, Lena has destroyed. And in order to keep Lena from scoring points, you have to have ball possession.
Well, that's just one of those things. I mean, Lena Winslow is one of those teams that they're going to control the clock with their run game. I mean, Everybody knows that. That's what they've been ever since Rick Aaron became the head coach there back in 1997. They've been a run-first team. They've never gone away from that.
Right.
Much so for the majority of the NUIC Northwest Conference teams. I mean, there's very few EPC that pass the ball. I mean, the ones that do pass the ball also are very physical, dominant running teams still. 07 Dakota, they could throw the ball, but they were running. 14 EPC, they could throw the ball, but they were a running team.
Right, and that's just it. I mean, you got to have a balance there. And I'm not saying that Aquin would have moved the ball against Lena because I don't think they would have on the ground. So, I mean, I can understand on wanting to get away from it. And, you run the spread, and your button brother is the pass. but you have to at least try. I mean, like I said to you, you're not only facing Lena, but you're facing Lena and the clock in this situation. The clock is just as much an opponent in this type of game as Lena was, and Aquin didn't even attempt to address that issue.
Well, it's one of those things. I mean, with every incomplete pass, the clock stops.
Right.
That just favors a more powerful team like Lena Winslow to keep pushing the ball down the field and scoring rather quickly. As I mean, let's be honest, everybody knew that Aquin was outmatched, and as soon as the two teams took the field, I think Aquin fans finally realized what they were up against. Because from the onset of the game, when Lena Winslow got the ball and Ravion took off for a 69-yard touchdown run just seconds into the game, it became very quiet very quickly.
Right. I mean, you're 22 seconds into the game and Valentine's streaking for 69 or 70 yards or whatever it was, and he's gone. I mean, the first 22 seconds of the game, the ball game is already over.
All right. And then, I mean, you look at the line play in comparison. I mean, when you got guys like Parker McGee and Ian Keel and Michael Jones and Isaiah Bruce playing on the defensive line, and then you counter that with
freshmen and sophomores.
Well, you had some,
right?
You have a mix of freshmen to seniors, but on the line specifically for Aquin, it was juniors and seniors. But they just don't stand up to what we've already identified as probably the best defensive line in all of Class 1 and 2A.
And hats off to Aquin as far as that's concerned, because, you know, over the years, Aquin, I mean, how many times haven't you seen Aquin's line is small, but they don't care. That doesn't affect what their game plan is. But in this type of game, I mean, this is really no different than what we've seen in state championships games when you get a Tuscola out of the South as far as the spread meeting the power run. The power run pretty much controls the game. And the line play shows the difference because, you know, in the spread you want more faster linemen than the beef. And unfortunately, you give some of that up in this situation.
Well, and that's where a lot of teams do opt for the spread. For instance, Aquin, Carrollton, even Tuscola of past years.
Right.
They were smaller on the line. They could not stand up to the force of a power run team. So you got to put your players in the best position available to put points on the board. And Aquin's done a great job of that. It started in the Todd Kramer era, and that's carried over into the era now with
Coach Barr.
Coach Barr, there you go. But at the same token, when you, like you said, when you face a power run team, that power run team is probably a power run team because they're just much physical on the defensive side of the ball as they are the offensive side of the ball, and then it goes back to what the NUIC exactly is.
Right, and I mean, you know, and then in 2011, that's where kind of Aquin had that nice mixture. I mean, they were fast, but they also did have a little size to them as well. I mean, that team wasn't giving up whatever the poundage was yesterday. I mean, yesterday, the poundage on the lineman to line was pretty big.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I haven't actually looked it up, but I would say Lena Winslow averaged probably 60 to 80 pounds on the line over Aquin.
Right.
And you're right. The 2011 team was much more bigger in stature and athletic on the line than what the current Aquin team is. But, you know, looking at what those guys can do, and then you add in, you know, Jake Karakis and Noah Hillman on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, that's just a lot of push that Le-Win gets on the line on both sides. Now, hats off to Aquin, like you stated, because I really felt that their line play withstood a lot.
Right.
I mean, specifically, I mean, you threw for 386 yards. Granted, there was a lot of that came against second-teamers, fresh soft team. But 251 yards in the first half against starters, I mean, that's pretty good considering the fact that you're going up against the number one team in state.
Well, and that, yeah. And you kind of look at all the teams in the area. I mean, because of the conference that we do play, I mean, you don't see passing teams week in, week out. I mean, look at all the previous championship seasons and teams that we've seen from our conference, and what would be the number one thing that we always worry about? Well, can they cover the pass? I mean, that's no different than Lena or what we talk about with Forreston. I mean, you have that, but that usually balances out into being a non-factor.
It
because
does.
you shut the run game down.
Well, so you make them one-dimensional,
Exactly.
so now you can sell out on putting more people back to defend the pass.
Yep.
And on top of that, you're going to keep running the ball, which chews more clock up, favors you, and puts more points on the board. And I don't know why. I mean, yeah, it's not flashy. Everybody calls it 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but guess what? It's very effective.
Right.
I mean, it's not like Lena Winslow can't throw. I mean, heck, Ty Crispin was 3 for 4 passing yesterday for 98 yards, and all of them 98 yards went for touchdown passes.
How many times haven't we seen that this year? I mean, I'd have to look, but I mean, he's got no interceptions on the year.
No.
I mean, very accurate, and when he does throw, it usually goes to the house.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, he throws a beautiful ball. I mean,
we don't talk about him nearly as much as the credit that he deserves, but when you don't pass, that's what you get.
Right. I mean, you could put him in the same category as Cooper Arndt, Jonah Deemer, even not Brad Fox, but Hayden Fox last year. Sorry, Brad. but I mean, you can put Ty Crispin in that same category, but he just, like you said, he doesn't have those numbers. But I mean, I tell you what, you get him backing up and getting ready to throw it, he is accurate on a deep ball.
Oh, we saw that in week 9.
Yeah.
I mean, threw it anywhere he wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing what they can do. Coach Aaron's just got this team prepped to do exactly what he wants them to do, and they can hit you from many different angles without going away from what they want to do.
Right. And I mean, like we said, Akron had a good season to this point. I mean, we all knew that this is probably where it would end, but nonetheless, had a good run. Second year in a row, making it to the quarterfinals. Nothing you can't hang your hat on. So
no, I mean, and for that senior class, I mean, that's more so than what a lot of seniors can say when they graduate. Yeah, we made it to back-to-back quarterfinals.
Or
who gets to play in that many games?
Right.
I mean, you look at it through the course of your high school career, at least, you're guaranteed 36 games.
Right.
And they got to play in 24 games, right? Yes, 24 games in 2 years.
Right.
I mean, that's awesome.
Right. But also, I mean, the team that we haven't talked about yet, but we'll get to, the senior class on the Forreston side. I mean, those guys can say, if they win this week, we've been on a team that's now made it to state 3 out of 4 years. I mean, if you think about that.
Yeah, that in itself is very, very, very impressive. No doubt about that. And like you said, we will get to that breakdown. But, I mean, Lena Winslow's clicking. We've known they have been. They've really been clicking ever since week 2. There's been no let-up all season long, as far as what I can see. I mean, I was there in week 2. I felt that they played their best ball game in week 2. We saw them against Dakota in week 9. And even this week against Akron, they still look like the exact same explosive team that we basically seen cruising along all year long.
Yeah, and that's what you like to see in a good team. You like to see no dips in play throughout the year, because that happens a lot. But another team, that has also been playing great since that week 2 is the Forreston Cardinals.
Yeah, so let's go and look at what they did against Princeville yesterday, as they won that game 42-0. So Princeville came in with a 9-2 record, and they came up to Forreston. Obviously, they had a lot of...
They came with some baggage, too.
Yeah, they had a lot of pre-game hype that they were trying to feed the players, but they were doing it in what I felt was not the right way to do it. It's something that you say to your players, not through the media, though.
Yeah, I agree. And, I guess as a coach, you're looking for ways to fire up your kids, because on film, unless you're an idiot, you had to know that this was coming. As far as from a Princeville standpoint, played hand-in-hand to Dakota, played hand-in-hand to AW last week. Then you get to film with Forreston, and it's like, oh, shoot. you know? But yeah, you want to keep your kids enthusiastic and get them fired up, but you also want to keep it within your own walls. I mean, this isn't the NFL where you can call out your players in the media and expect them to have a response. At this level, you call out your team saying this would be a good defensive challenge for us. I mean, that's basically like printing the paper and Forreston putting it in their locker room. I mean, that's basically what happened because, I mean, by the time we got it on Wednesday was it? The first article that came out, it's already been enforced. And I mean, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're just feeding more fire to a team that
didn't need it.
Yeah. One, they don't need it because they're already mentally prepared. They've been that way all season long, 1 week at a time.
I mean, this has basically been brewing for 4 years. The Forreston machine that you see now started 4 years ago.
It started long before that.
You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
On the varsity level. I mean, here, the seniors as freshmen were downstate. You had that.
Some of them played.
Right. The sophomore year, then you lose to Stark County or whatever it was, and then you followed up with state championship run last year, and now here you are on the brink of it again this year. I mean, this is what we've been talking about for 2 years. I mean, I remember sitting down last year saying I would not be surprised if we were talking about a repeat champion again. Well, they're not there yet, but obviously they're exactly where we thought they'd be at this point.
Oh, yeah, they're exactly where we predict them to be all season long. I mean, yeah, we had them going undefeated through the year, so they got the one loss against Lena Winslow, who happened to be right there, number one ranked team.
And to be honest, I think they needed that.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't come out prepared at all, in my mind, for the first half of that game against Lena Winslow, because obviously Lena Winslow came out fired up for that game, and it may have stemmed from some of the things we dropped.
That's possible.
And if it is, great.
We have a way to light fires.
That's what we want. We want to light those fires.
Right.
Because we want to see the best games. And if we don't light those fires, maybe we don't see the best games.
Who knows? I mean, it's funny how much you can affect 16, 17-year-old kids, but I mean, because everything with the media the way it is now, I mean, everything's at your fingertips. I mean, 15 years ago, if we wanted to see something on a team, we'd have to go wait for the papers to be published. Twitter wasn't established as far as what it is now. I mean, everything's right there now. So everything that we say other teams say, Princeton, is right there.
Well, we even had a guy from the Sangamo sending us pictures of what Byron and Williamsville was because he thought that Byron was in the NUIC. Sorry, buddy, you're wrong.
Yeah, and we don't want to see Byron in the NUIC.
Thanks for the picture, by the way, whoever you are. But, yeah, I mean, so Forreston, obviously they came out in typical Forreston fashion, forced a quick 3-and-out, started driving down the field, and then, boom, there goes AJ, 40 yards and a score.
Right, and I'd have to look at the box score last week against Anwar and Wethersfield, but Princeville had not allowed a point in the first quarter all year. And there you go. I mean, shell shock like that.
So then they go through and get another 3-and-out. This time Princeville moved the ball a little bit further than the first time around. But then it's a back that has put up some numbers, obviously, on the year, but it's not a premier back. And it's Evan Kelsey taking off for 27 yards and a score to give Forreston a 14-0 lead.
Yeah, we saw that earlier this year, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what it is with Forreston. I mean, we talked about this last year, and it carried over this year. I mean,
it's a plethora of backs.
And you're talking about a kid that was a leading rusher in the conference coming into this year who's not even running the ball anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Matt Akins. He's on the line.
Right. So, I mean, just... here's the back for you. Have a back. Everybody have a back. That's what Forreston is. Everybody has a back. Forreston's got 500 backs.
Well, what's funny about that? It's kind of like Forreston reminds me of the Broncos from the Shanahan era, where you just plug somebody in and away you go, because that's what the system is designed for. It's all about line play, and that's where Forreston wins their games. I mean, much like Lena Winslow, Lena Winslow's got the beef on the line. Forreston's got decent-sized kids. They're not as big as Lena Winslow, but they're definitely fast, and they fire off the ball, and that's one of the things that I like between Lena Winslow and Forreston is there's just a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, on the line.
I mean, that's basically what's going to be a key coming into this game. It's going to be line play. I mean, what more could you ask for? I mean, the backs and your specialty guys have an effect, but the line is where the game's won.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, there wasn't much that Princeville was going to do in order to stop what Forreston had done. I mean, you look right away in the second quarter, and it's AJ going off for a 10-yard run on a Princeville was trying to go for it, get some life going, down 14 to nothing. You can't blame for it, but they were on their own side of the field, and they kind of pulled a Forreston and went for it on 4th and short in their own end. Got stuffed, and Forreston returned the favor with the A.J. Christensen touchdown.
Yeah, and then it's over. I mean, it really, that's that fast. I mean, you got to punt the ball there, even though it probably didn't matter. But you weren't going to score 14 points on that drive anyway.
Right. You still got to play field position.
Right.
I mean, I get it. I mean, it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2.
How many times have we not heard this story?
I know.
Well, if we got to get a yard, or I think my kids can get it, the whole...
Yeah, but, I mean, there's some teams that you can just say, yep, you're darn right, you can do it.
The two we're talking about for next week.
Yes, not Princeville.
Right.
Princeville, in my opinion, you got to punt the ball. Make it harder for them to get 22 points on the board, not easier.
Right.
Because it took all of seconds probably. I think it was actually a little over a minute and a half, and Forreston was right back in the end zone.
Right.
And really, that you might as well put the blanket on it at that moment and said good night.
Right.
So obviously,
and hats off to Princeville as far as because of all the crap we heard this week. I mean, they took their loss like men. Their coach was in their paper, saying we lost to a better team. It wasn't nothing that Princeville did. It was that Forreston was just a better team. So
and I mean, I really applaud Princeville. I mean, they had no answer for what Forreston is, and we've known that for how long.
Right.
But they never stopped fighting. I mean, actually, looking back at both quarterfinal matchups, neither team stopped fighting. They both kept fighting, even though the lopsided scores happened.
And the thing with Princeville, they got their doors blown off, but we're going to be talking about that next year because they're all juniors. They're in the north. They probably go 9-0 next year. As far as I'm concerned, they should. We're pretty darn close to it. So, I mean, if we put enough teams in the playoffs next year, we'll be talking about Princeville at some point.
Right. So, this is going to lead us to what we've all been anticipating, waiting for.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, Shane last week said you could have booked this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you could have booked it.
First round.
You could have booked it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. And that's our semifinal matchup. The Forreston Cardinals at the Lena Winslow Panthers. Shane, this guarantees an NUIC team in the state championship game for the 14th time in the past 15 seasons.
Yeah, not much really to say other than...
But we still get no respect.
That's kind of where we're at with this. I mean, this is kind of a... I guess we should have a thing on the next year's preseason video. We can put it on the board or everything, and we can say, who's the annual state getter this year? I mean, that's really... I mean, it's funny, but that's what it's becoming.
It is. And it goes to the quality of the play of the players, the coaches that we have here. I mean, we've talked about it throughout the season. I mean, you keep seeing teams, you're starting to see teams get better, and they're starting to rise up.
Right.
And that just elevates the level of play throughout. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and boast everybody's bubbles that they're great, because really we only had 2 great teams this year. But when you can put out the great teams year in and year out,
Right.
that builds the other programs. Hey, we got to get to that level. And we've stated that before. I mean, it started back in the late 90s. Everybody was chasing Galena. And then it transitioned that everybody was chasing Dakota. And then there for a while it was who's going to win between Dakota and Lena Winslow.
Yeah.
Now it's Forreston everybody's chasing with Lena Winslow right there knocking on the door as well.
Right.
Again.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we'll get to that next year. I mean, we should be in a similar situation with a strong couple teams at the top again. I mean, a couple of the top teams this year didn't really graduate a lot going into next year.
And that's what is going to be great. I mean, obviously, these two teams last met up in week 2, which was probably really, I mean, Forreston did have a full game against EPC in week 4, mainly because they played sloppily against EPC. They were never not in control of that game, but because of their lack of focus or whatever in that game, it forced them to play a 4-quarter game.
Right.
When they should have put the game away sooner than they did.
Yeah.
Whereas Lena Winslow has been on cruise control, and they have not played a 4-quarter game since that matchup with Forreston.
Right. And you excuse me, you sometimes wonder if that can affect a team, but in this situation, when you got two teams that are kind of in the same boat, it's really not going to matter what previous matchups were or whatnot. It's going to come down to what happens on Saturday. I mean, they're not playing. I mean, the kids are conditioned. You're ready to go. That's not going to be an issue as far as what we've heard. Because, I mean, if you recall in 2011, before Dakota and Lena finally met in week 9, Lena was steamrolling everybody. And the going rate was, is Lena going to play a 4-quarter game all year long? I mean, that's what we were talking about then. And, I mean, that wasn't the reason that they lost that year. But those are the types of conversations we have when a team's on cruise control, whether or not they can win a big game because they haven't played a full game yet.
Right. Now, let's be honest. We have Forreston and Lena Winslow. You have two coaches that have both won state titles. Twice. Both of them have been to the semifinals. This is Coach Diddick's 3rd trip to the semifinals as a head coach now, in the last 4 seasons, albeit. Yep. And this is Coach Aaron's 4th trip to the semifinals. Yep. With his only loss coming in 2009, right before he won the first state title.
Yeah, I mean,
so you got two good coaches here that know how to get the teams ready to play. Right. And, I mean, obviously, Rick Aaron's record speaks for himself. I mean, he's 2 wins away from tying head coach Jerry Lano's record in the NUIC at 179 wins.
Right. Now, it'll just be a question whether that's this year yet. If that is, it'll mean a state championship for Lena. Or it'll come early next year within the first week. I mean, that's where it's at. Obviously, if you're a Lena fan, you hope it's this year. Because that'll mean you're hoisting it in DeKalb.
Correct. So, and I mean, Coach Diddick's been the head coach at Forreston for his 10th season now? Yes. So, he's done a lot, because when he took over the program, I mean, he took it over from Travis Hines, but they weren't making the playoffs. They'd come off of a regular run in the playoffs to a little bit of a short drought. And then in 2010, Coach Diddick got back into the playoffs. And then from that moment on, here we are. Yeah. I mean, the only times that Forreston has not made it past the first round since 2011 is when they matched up with Lena Winslow.
Right. So, I mean, both coaches know how to win. And ultimately, the game comes down to the players. But in these big time games, coaching has a huge effect as well, though.
Oh, for sure. Because you got to make sure you're making the right calls at the right times to put your players in the right positions to make the plays that you need to catapult yourself to either get better field position or set yourself up for that score that could be the defining moment of the game.
Yeah. How many times haven't we seen over the years that, I mean, Rick Aaron's adjustments alone speak them for themselves. I mean, that's not something you see on a week-in-week basis throughout the whole conference. No disrespect to the other coaches, but I mean, we're talking about two of the best coaches in the conference right here.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. And, I mean, Rick obviously is the mastermind of making second-half adjustments and getting the kids focused on where they need to go. Now, if you start breaking it down, too, I mean, when you got guys like Ty Crispin and Parker McGee, and then you got backs with Ravion and Sean Ormiston and Gage Schwartz, and then you add in the big playmaker at the tight end position and Isaiah Bruce. And then you look at their line with Ian Keel and Michael Jones and Noah Hillman. I mean, just like this team is an all-star team in both classes. I mean, I would put either one of these two teams, and I know you would too, in 1A and 2A and say, have at it, boys, because I'm taking you to win.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't get to see that. I mean, if you were on the upstate side, you could, because you get to schedule a out-of-conference opponent these next 2 years. So, but yeah, and just to touch on the coaching thing a little bit, I mean, you're made to look like a genius even, I mean, when you have rosters like these. I mean, as long as you put guys where they belong, your job gets a little easier because you know these players are taking care of what they should be taking care of. And if not, coach, we'll handle it. Don't worry, we'll get it done.
Right. And I mean, and if that's the case that takes place, that is great.
Right.
Because if your players are saying, hey, we know, coach, we know what we got to do, you know that you understand and that they understand what's at stake. Now, it can also play to a negative at the same point.
It'll drive a coach nuts because you don't know what you're always going to get.
Right. I mean, case in point. Go back to 2011 Dakota. Coach Lano had no idea what he was getting on a week-in, week-out basis.
Right.
I mean, you had guys.
That was a team that knew they were going to win, and it was just whether they wanted to win that night.
Well, and it took them a half to get started every week. I mean, heck, they had, 9 come from behind
games?
I
think they trailed in 9 of their last 9 games against crap opponents.
So, I mean, it happens. And if you look at what Lena Winslow is right now, I mean, they're very confident, and they have every right to be. And based off of what we've seen, they know what's at stake here. They know that Forreston is a very good team. We're already starting to see a bunch of people talk about, Lena Winslow's going to run away with it because they just put up 67 on Akron. Well, here's the point. The difference between the two teams is we've known Coach Aaron to always be the guy to get to 40 and get your kids off.
Yeah.
Coach Diddick is not that guy. No. He's not one of those that plays to 40 and get your kids off. He's more one of those that says, well, we're up 3 scores, I'm going to put some more kids in.
Not true to a sense, but get your kids to 1 and get them off. I mean, it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or you win by 100. And, something I learned, you talk to enough people, and this might not be nice to say, but the people who are saying that this is going to be a blowout in either way, especially Lena's just going to roll them because they rolled Akron, is people who have a higher self-worth of Akron than what they were.
Well, and that's part of the thing, too. I mean, you really break down what Forreston and Akron was. If Forreston wanted to, they could have put up 86 on Akron just as easy.
Right. And you sometimes wonder if that has to happen for these people to understand that, but it is what it is. I mean, we talked about the two. I mean, these are the two top teams, and it doesn't matter what they did to a common opponent.
No,
because you have two different mentalities.
They are. I mean, and it comes down to what the coaches do. I mean, no disrespect to Coach Aaron. I don't disagree with the fact that he wants to put on a clocker before he pulls the starters. Well, I mean, if you look at what he's done, you almost have to get your kids prepared for a 4-quarter game.
Well, look at the carries that Valentine has had throughout the season. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'd be willing to bet that how many of the games did he have less than 10 carries?
Oh, exactly.
I mean, you're talking less than 10 carries.
And he's pushing 2,000 yards. I mean,
especially when we saw Stockton last week, a kid had 41 carries. I mean, that's 4 weeks of games for Valentine.
right. And look at the numbers he's putting up.
Oh my God.
Hello. I mean, yeah, yesterday, 12 carries, 248 yards. 12 for 248.
Yeah,
That's 20 yards a carry. Hello.
Here's 2 first downs for you. I mean, that's what it's coming down to.
But, I mean,
yeah, I mean,
if you haven't really paid attention much to what Coach Diddick does at Forreston, he's just not one of those guys that's going to... He's looking to get more experience into the game. I mean, I don't know a better way to put it, but he's not one of those guys that runs it up to get the clocker and then pulls out. He's one that gets a comfortable lead and starts putting others in. And that's how he starts building his trust level with which players he can play with in different situations.
Right. I mean, both systems work. That's been proven, obviously, or we wouldn't be talking about it now. But I can guarantee Valentine will have more than 5 or 10 carries this week, just as I will guarantee that Christensen or Fox will have more than 5 or 10 carries.
Let's look at their Week 2 matchup. I mean, he had how many carries for 210 yards? 29?
Right.
So he ran the ball 29 times for 210 yards.
Yeah.
Not 12 times for 248.
Right. And you also had...
And you got to remember that out of that 210, he had one that went for 81 because of piss poor tackling by Forreston.
Right. I mean, that was his last carry of the game. Otherwise, you're looking at 18 carries for 129. I mean, that's where you want to keep him realistically if you're Forreston.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, Forreston combats the Lena Winslow firepower that we've already mentioned. I mean, you got AJ, you have Gavin Fox, you got Garrett Bodicher, who has done a phenomenal job taking over the fullback role while they moved Matt Akins to the guard position. And Matt Akins is like, okay, whatever you need, coach, let's win.
Yeah. I mean, how many times you don't see that a lot?
No, I mean, you got to respect that. And then you're getting consistent contributions from Evan Kelsey and Ethan Boulder and Joe Bowers even. I mean, you see it many times. Here comes AJ, Gavin, and Garrett off the field, and in goes Ethan, Joe, and Evan, and you're like, wait, everybody's on. Oh, there they go for a first down again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just become the way that the Cardinal Express has been.
And a lot of that is contributed to the offensive schemes that Forreston runs. I mean, you're just looking at plugging somebody into a system rather than having this guy be our premier back. We only move the ball because of him.
Right. So, I mean, you look at Forreston's line. I mean, obviously you got Braden Walton, Skylar Regas, Mitchell Hines, now Matt Akins on the line. One of the things that I've noticed about Forreston here is they're not getting the line play that they necessarily need over the past couple weeks. And that's an area that I think they need to pick up. But take into Lena Winslow did not look like they had as strong as line play as we've seen either yesterday in comparison.
Right, and you kind of wonder if that's been because of the lack of competition. I mean, how many times, we've talked about Forreston kind of being that machine mentality, so to speak, kind of getting you what you need to and getting off. And, I mean, as a coach, you'd never admit it, but, these are kids. They look at who they're playing and who they're not. They know whether it's going to be a tough game or not. It's easy to get lackadaisical when you're playing Princeville, Aquin, Milledgeville. It's easier to take off some plays, so to speak.
Well, especially when you're talking about 2 state championship caliber teams that we had identified before the season ever began.
Right. So, me personally, I expect both lines to be at their peak next week. If they're not, it's going to be a problem for the other team.
Well, they're going to have to be.
Right.
Let's be honest, because if they're not, one of them's going to get steamrolled.
Right. Because I don't anticipate both of them having an off game at the same time.
Right. So, We have very close predictions on this ball game as anticipated.
Right, yeah. I mean, I was a little surprised when we looked these up.
So
how close it was. I mean, I mean, yes, but no. But I mean, to come down to within a few points.
I'm going to ask you for your pick before, and I'll give my pick, obviously, before we roll out the projections. But
okay.
Who do you have?
You want my pick right now?
I want your pick.
You want my pick right now?
Yes.
Okay. My mentality of this would come down to what we've been saying, and talking and seeing what we've seen, and if you truly believe that Lena Winslow is playing the same now as they have since week 2, I don't believe that Forreston's playing the same now as they have been since week 2. Maybe a touch better. And in week 2, a game that most people feel like Forreston kind of let get off the hook. And also the mentality of beating a team of this caliber twice within a season. I think it's really hard to do, but not impossible. But also on the road, Forreston is more successful on the road at Lena than they are at home against Lena. I like the Cardinals in the rematch. But don't ask me to put a score on it.
Well, that's good because I've been tossing it ever since last night when when it became evident that what we thought was going to happen happened.
I've been tossing it for weeks.
But I mean, I agree with you to a point. I mean, Lena Winslow has been playing pretty much the same ball all year long, which is exactly where you want to be in one out of your kids.
Yeah, I want to clear. I mean, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing.
Right.
No. The level they're playing at is extraordinary.
Yeah. Right? But, I mean, you look at Forreston, okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Forreston could have played much better than they did against Lena Winslow the first time around. They showed that in the second half of that game. And then, yeah, they let one get away because lack of execution for the better term.
And I don't want to rank Forreston 1 all year and then to sit here and not pick them because that's exactly what I've done. I've ranked Forreston number 1 all year, even a week after they lost that game.
There you go, Parker. You just picked Forreston. Me, though?
He's going to take Lena. I can feel it. He doesn't know, actually. Do we need a commercial break?
I'm going to take Forreston in this game. I just think that at this point in the season, and I've stated it before, right now, Forreston is playing better football than Lena Winslow. And that's my pick. But here's the take on the game. One poll has it Lena Winslow by 3 points. The other poll has it Forreston by a point.
Average them out.
So you have a toss-up game here, exactly what we expected. And Parker, by the way, Kerry does go with Lena Winslow on this, so there you have it. You got one Lena Winslow vote, buddy.
And just to throw this out, if you happen to be a gambling man on high school football, which I don't suggest or endorse in any way, this might be a good game to stay away from because you don't have a clue who's going to win.
This is going to be a great game. I mean, if you love high school football, whether you like the teams playing or not, this is a game you have to see. There's just no doubt about it.
At least pay the $4 or it's probably $10.
It's $7. It'll be $7, I think, for the semis.
$7? Okay, wow.
Well, it's 10 for state.
At least go buy some 50-50 tickets. Maybe you walk out with a couple grand. Who knows?
Right? I mean, let's pack the Le-Win Athletic Bowl. We have a state semifinal between conference rivals.
Right.
It's not very often we get to see this.
Yeah, and I mean we'll be in perfect position to see the crowd at its fullest. So I mean I'm looking forward to that.
I know this is going to be a great game. Get out to the game. Cheer on whoever you want. We have an NUIC team going to state. There's nothing better than that.
Right. The only downside of what we've talked about, how many times is that we can't do 1 through 32 and have this be the state championship game.
Right.
Even though many would say it is, I'm not ready to jump on that train yet because the South is better than what it's been in years past.
We'll break that down here in a
minute.
minute.
We'll get to that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is what we've all wanted. I just hope it lives up to it.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a great game, and I really don't have anything else to say. But good luck to both teams. We expect a title match in Lena come Saturday at 2 p.m. Radio broadcast on 92.1. We'll be there, and man, both teams bring your best efforts. That's what we anticipate.
And pray for no rain.
Yeah. Let's hope for a great game. No injuries. Clean game. I expect a clean game. Both teams, to me, have a lot of class in that aspect. So, cheer, buddy.
Yeah.
You ready?
I guess.
All right. Okay, so now we'll break down that 1A South matchup where we have Tuscola and Athens. Obviously, Tuscola is the number 1 seed in the South, and they're going to travel to Athens as they are the number 6 seed. Tuscola comes in this game with the 12-0 mark, while Athens is 10-2. And yesterday, Shane, Tuscola beat Carrollton 48-20, whereas Athens won 34-14. Two interesting points. Carrollton was up first 6-0, but Tuscola took a 27-6 lead at the half, and Athens was actually tied with Bread Hill at 14-0 at the half before putting up 3 second-half touchdowns to pull away 34-14.
Yeah, not really much to talk. I mean, those games both went the way we thought. If anything, the Carrollton-Tuscola game was closer than what I thought. Looking at that, I mean, Carrollton was a good team, but no match for Tuscola. On one of our sites that we belong, I think there was a score prediction. I put out like a 64-6 type game. Obviously, I know it wouldn't get that high, but I anticipated a more separation than, 28 points?
Yeah, 28 points, but
that's
keep in mind, keep in mind they were up 48-12.
Right. I mean, but you get the point. And then with Athens and Red Hill was a good team. Not to dismiss anything there, but Athens,
they were undefeated until yesterday.
Right, but Athens,
Athens comes from the better conference, the Sangamo, obviously.
Right.
Where they have better teams. I mean, we'll break that down real quick. I mean, their 2 losses are to a 2A semifinalist, which is Baroa Forsyth.
Right.
And then their other one was a 3A quarterfinalist who lost yesterday to Byron 14-0, and that was Williamsville, who they lost to in Week 9, 28-0. They lost to Maroa 56-15 in Week 6. So, I mean,
play tough competition.
Yeah, you're playing 2A and 3A teams making long runs in the playoffs. Tuscola, on the other hand, obviously they're undefeated. And probably their 2 best games were both against Shelbyville, who is a 2A semifinalist. They beat them 47-44. And then they also had a 3-point win over St. Teresa, which St. Teresa lost in the second round last week in Class 3A playoffs.
Right. So, I mean, both have good resumes. Obviously, I like Athens' resume a little bit better than Tuscola's, but you're both playing in a semifinal game now.
You're both at a semifinal game, and if you look at what Tuscola likes to do, obviously they're a good mix of spread and run.
Right.
They're going to go 3 wide, 4 wide, but they can also come in double tight and do what we are accustomed to seeing in a double wing or wing T type formation. But the QB is the key to stop here, as Luke Sluter has thrown for over 1,600 yards on the season.
Yep.
And now after yesterday's game, he's ran for over 800 yards of the season, obviously leading the team in rushing. So when your quarterback obviously is throwing the ball and leading your team in rushing, that obviously becomes focal point number 1.
Right. I mean, obviously you'd have to look at the numbers, but that's close to, if not more than, probably 50% of their offense coming from one guy. I mean, that's good and bad. I mean, because if you shut that down, you're done. But good because you have it.
Right. I mean, they do have other options. Obviously, they have one of the best receivers in that area. They have another running back that is very good, and I don't have their names off the top of my head right now, but I know who I'm talking about. And then if you look at Athens, they're more of what we're accustomed to seeing. They're more of that wing T, double wing type of team, as they're formulated out of the Carthage eras of the late 90s, early 2000s. where they're just going to come at you with 3 running backs and a cloud of dust and pound your tails off.
Right, here it is. Stop it. If good, great. If not.
So, I mean, realistically, Athens really matches up with what we're accustomed to seeing. Who do you got on this game?
I like Athens, but if Tuscola wins, I think that does give them a better advantage at state, having seen a power run team as well. So hopefully Athens wins.
I have Tuscola. That's
Right.
my pick to get to the finals against Forreston. Both polls have Tuscola winning this game by a point. So this is going to be a true toss-up game, and this is going to make for great semifinal games and state championship games. All right, rolling down into Class 2A as we're going to continue on with our 2A playoff push as we have brackets going, and obviously we had 2 teams compete. But yesterday, GCMS beat El Paso Gridley as expected, 42-7. So a 5-score victory there for the Falcons. And Sterling Newman rolled over Orion 40-14. So the north side was pretty one-sided, much like the Class 1A North as predicted. But you roll into the south side, and man, did they have some ball games. Jeez. Monroe Forsyth down 16-0 at halftime to West Hancock. Comes back with 3 touchdowns in the second half to win.
Thank God.
20-16.
Thank God for my bracket.
Thank God for everybody's bracket, because holy cow. I mean, I'm sure there were some that had West Hancock, but man, what a game that was.
Yeah. I mean, 16-0 at half, and it's like, oh man. I remember going to a game where a team should have been not down at half and hearing a nice halftime speech, and that team came back to win as well. So
yeah, not too long ago.
Yeah, probably about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we've all seen that before, and on shorter scales as well. You've seen a team down at half when they should not be down, and they ultimately come back rolling. So.
Yeah. So the other one was Shelbyville and Westville. We both had Westville picked to win. And,
yeah, I don't.
Oh my gosh, all week long, all the people on the forums were, Westville is going to get blown out, Shelbyville this, Shelbyville that. Well, guess what? The first half pretty much went the way that people thought, as Shelbyville got out to a 34-17 lead at half. But it was Westville who stormed back in the second half, took a 44-43 lead with a minute remaining.
And then it happened.
And then they're faced with the 4th and short as they had it was 44-43 prior, but Westville had gotten the ball back after forcing a 3-and-out. And then they were facing a 4th down, and instead of going for it, they punted, which was, in my opinion, was the right thing to do.
Defense wins championships.
Defense wins championships, always does. They pinned Shelbyville back on their own 36-yard line with a minute left in the game.
Which is good field position.
Which is great field position, unless you have guys by the name of Turner Poland and Kendrick Bell leading your attack down the field through the passing offense. Shelbyville scores with 36 seconds remaining, gets the 2-point conversion, takes the 51-44 lead. Westville's left to try to air it out. Shelbyville picks it off, takes a knee, game, set, match. Shelbyville moves on.
I mean, I don't know what Westville's defense was like, but, you know, you drop a few guys in coverage and just hope for the best. I mean,
oh, man. I tell you what, that would have been a game to see. I was getting updates all day long from Doug Ward. Doug, thanks for everything for that. But, man, that's got to be heart-wrenching knowing you had that game won and then lose it like that. So, anyway, your semifinal matchups in 2A are going to be Sterling Newman as the 1 seed, 12-0 at Gibson City Melvin Sibley, the number 2 seed, who is also 12-0. And then you have the number 4 seed, Monroe Forsyth Trojans at 11-1, traveling to Shelbyville to take on the Rams, who are 10-2. Monroe Maroa Forsyth's only losses to Williamsville, 47-6 back in week 3. As we said, Byron just beat Williamsville 14-0. And then Shelbyville has their 2 losses. They lost to Tuscola, 47-44 back in week 4. And St. Teresa, 28-20 in week 9. Who do you got? Newman GCMS.
Newman. I mean, not much to say.
I'm going to take Newman as well. Obviously, the polls are split. One poll has GCMS by a touchdown. The other poll has Newman by a score. Williamsville, I'm sorry.
Shelbyville.
Maroa Forsyth and Shelbyville.
Maroa Forsyth. Hopefully going to have a perfect bracket.
I do like Maroa Forsyth. Both polls like Maroa Forsyth by 2 scores. If you haven't, make sure you're there early. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're going to bring all the state final production for you as well, as we'll be down in DeKalb for everything live for both Class 1A and 2A state final games. And it's that time of the season that we've been waiting for quite a while.
Yeah, 2 weeks left. Not a lot, but obviously some big games. The one we've all been talking about. Then we'll have the coverage of the state championship game where we'll have a representative regardless. So couldn't really ask for more than that.
No, you sure can't. It speaks volumes for the NUIC. Yeah. And what will speak bigger volumes for the NUIC if GCMS does get Newman next week.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you're a West Carroll fan. They played GCM. I mean, that game was a lot closer than the final score. And then, GCMS just rolls El Paso like we thought they would. I mean, we could be talking about a 1A and a 2A semifinal game right now. But, hats off to West Carroll. Just couldn't quite get it done. But, man, that would have been something. Huh?
So, get out to the games. It's going to be a great week of football. A lot of great games, both 1A and 2A. Obviously, Newman's playing in Gibson City, so I expect a lot of the Northern Illinois fans to be in Lena on Saturday. As always, root for the NUIC.